Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's said that OPEC, what OPEC does, has power, so to regulate the sale of crude outside. But what you're supposed to use within your country,
OPEC has nothing to
do with that. So if the government decides that, okay, and I understand that there was a percentage of the crude produced in Nigeria supposed to go to local refineries.
Yes.
So if those private individuals set up their refineries, would they still get that local portion at an international rate? Is that what it means?
Well, that is the thing, because as we speak now, we have a businessman, like I was met to, a Nigerian businessman that wants to establish a local refinery. But did you know what the businessman said? He said he will not promise lower prices, but he's going to promise what? Availability. And I'm telling you, that will never be a cost-effective investment. There will be no window or aperture for profit. Because I will prefer, like I said, to just go, bring this, and in a maximum of 3 months, I am selling, I'm making my margins. And let me tell you why subsidy for, like I said, subsidy is a concept. These things work. Ask yourself, why is it, we don't like mentioning countries, but why is it that in the other OPEC countries, this PMS is as cheap as sometimes 15 naira?
Perhaps there is a simple reason: they do not refine abroad, or they do not bring in imported products.
Exactly.
Exactly. So if that is the case, the question is, I mean, you say that as it currently stands, you support, you know, the retention of subsidy because the economy is weak. But the
for a
question
given period, because if after that period, subsidy on its own will be irrelevant.
You're just adding the caveats now.
No, let me tell you why I said I support it, because if you allow for internal refining, you understand, and you give it to them at a rate that is not an international, that is subsidy on its own.
Because the question we're looking at right now is, we know how much right now the federal government says it owes. What the major marketer says the federal government owes is a different figure, but we all know that the figures are huge. We're talking of between the range of 130 billion naira to 200 billion naira.
It shouldn't panic anybody. It can be resolved by Nigerians.
It can be resolved. I mean, the federal government only recently paid 156 billion.
Didn't you see the exchange rate differentials and interest rates?
These are all the
These are the wastages we are talking about.
These are all the things that have been factored into the import of petrol.
Because of your weak currency.
Do we say that this is sustainable at least in the short term, in the interim?
It is sustainable.
Because it's going to take a while for us to get these refineries up and ready.
It depends on your definition of a while.
How long do you think it would take to do the refineries?
Let me tell you, in a maximum. No, like we said, we can fix them. In a maximum of 12 to 18 months.
12 to 18 months is still a while. We're talking about people who do not have petrol in the immediate term.
That is why when you make promises to your citizens and they are ready to give you the benefit of doubt, don't move off the track. Like we said, the outgoing government promised us some pilot refineries. And do you know how you would just solve this?
What was the challenge? Because for them then, we do recall that one of the reasons why the federal government told us that they had to take away subsidy was so that refineries can be established, that nobody will want to refine in a market where the price of petroleum products, especially petrol, is regulated. So tell us, why do you think that the refineries did not work?
Like you said, how do you grow local economies? How do you grow local economies?
Let's not go into, how we grow local economies. Why didn't the establishment of the refineries not work in your estimation?
Well, as far as I'm concerned, that was why I said some people politically just, at some points, just decided to punctuate the minds of the government negatively. See how you solve these internal problems. If you start local refining and you start picking this crude oil from the oil wells in Naira, right, probably to the tank farms in Naira, then from the tank farms to the refineries in Naira. Then you distribute them through the pipelines in Naira, and you sell them to Nigerians in Naira. Everything is Naira-nized. So where is this exchange rate differentials going to come? And let me tell you, all this noise we are talking about, tankers, this, that, all these are adding up to the pressures. If you have your rail lines working, tankers and trucks will be limited to where? To just the metropolitan centers. That was why we said these concepts work.
Why is it?
You don't need a truck coming all the way from Sokoto or Yola to Lagos.
Mr.
It's
Bala,
not needed.
I think now we just realized something. We have the solutions to so many of these problems.
Very easy solutions.
Because now you're talking about the rail lines for
Yes.
movement of petroleum products.
Yes.
I recall the governor of Lagos State had said something concerning this, where he said, well, we have no business getting to see most of these trucks on our
They
roads,
don't need
that you can
to.
use the rail line. And when the Pengaston president also visited the governor of Delta State, he also said something about the PIB, appealing to the National Assembly for the passage of that bill. So if we all know that these are things that will bring so much good to the nation, why haven't we as a people been able to implement them? So implementation should also be another issue we'll look.
I've been saying this. I said the difference is just in the implementation. It is the implementation that will make some economies to keep growing and become vibrant, while some economies will collapse. We have analyzed now how everything can be done in Naira. And that will, once you start doing that, we don't have anything. Already our currency is weak. We will not be bothered about exchange rate differential. We will not be bothered about interest rates. You do this thing, then you have rail lines. Network these rail lines across the country. And nobody, in fact, there will be no reason why trucks will move from one part of the country to the other. You just collect, in fact, these are the concepts we're talking about. Trucks and tankers are limited to metropolitan cities because you can't connect pipelines to every filling stations. Then they will just collect from the depots to the filling stations.
Are you optimistic about implementation?
It's very easy. That was why we said concept and principles are the same. The principle of gravity is the principle of gravity. It depends on how you use it. The principle of convex or concave lens is the same principle.
So
Subsidy is a principle, right? Punitive measures, if you want to lock up your economy. Let me just give you a quick example. Recently, there is an Asian country that decided to execute drug dealers. The whole world said, no, don't keep. That country said, we must instill morals in our country. If you bring in drug, we will kill you, right? They killed those people. And I supported the killing. Believe me, anybody that wants to take drugs today will avoid that country. That is how you fix economies. If you decide today that everything will be from the wellhead to the refineries, everything will be within Nigeria. And after that, we will be conveying this crude oil through wagons and rail lines. Start that implementation within a maximum of 1 year. You will never see tanker loitering our roads.
By this, everything within the country, from the wellheads to the refineries, are you implying we shouldn't sell to the international community?
No, international community, that is where you make your millions, your dollars, and you boost your external reserve.
Everything within should be in
we are
there.
talking about growing the aggregate economy internally. But if you expose us to subsidy, I have a plastic manufacturing company or a leather company. If I bring this PMS or diesel to run, knowing that there is no electricity, as Mawakwe said, I bring this PMS or diesel at such high rates, and I'm running my plastic industry here or food processing industry. Do you expect my goods or product, the unit cost per product of my goods, to be cheaper than imported ones?
Let's close
then
on
how
this.
will I grow?
Let's close on this. We already have been able to identify the problems, and you have brought in possible solutions.
Yes.
Can these be implemented, and how?
They can be implemented. All you need is to just have technocrats and come with time frames and be ready to punish people. Then make sure the new Nigeria we are going to have and the new oil companies, make sure the joint venture arrangement with the IOCs or international companies are respected. Don't keep delaying contract cycles. It's only in Nigeria that you see people involved in contracts that are open-ended. People will participate in pre-qualification, invitation to tender, and no contracts are awarded. You can never build aggregate reserve if you behave like that. And you can never grow the internal economy because you cannot create mobility of economy with weak currency an unexpected announcement of depreciation and devaluation of Naira, knowing that you make these people to be importing products, why wouldn't they asphyxiate you by telling you to pay the differentials?
Now you talk about technocrats. It brings us to, I know we're closing on this, it brings us to the kind of men and women that you expect to see.
Maope can be made the minister for petroleum. All you need is you just come up with a time frame. She doesn't, believe me, she doesn't need to be an engineer. Just come up with people. Everybody has a responsibility. Agree with a timeline. If you say there is a delay or the strategic reserve is empty, how did it go empty? Who is supposed to be in charge? There are name tags.
I think would that be the definition of technocrat? Because you would think that you would put square pegs in square
No, the only
holes.
places are maybe
people who have knowledge of the sector.
What is decency? Let me tell you, the technical knowledge just takes you to a particular point. To manage and strategically be a boss requires honesty. No matter how technically sound you are, if you are not honest, you cannot be trusted, you can collapse an economy.
Well, I think we have to bring you back again, especially when the administration comes in. So many things you have said about the caliber of persons, the willpower to implement so many of these things, and analyzing some of the issues, recognizing some of the issues, analyzing the problems and proffering solutions. We do hope that these optimism that you share is same across
it works in other countries.
Well, Zach Abala, he's a petroleum engineer and an expert in the petroleum industry. Many thanks for coming on Sunrise Daily today.
Thank you.